I'm going to teach a little bit about one of my favorite things in the world, and that's fishing for smallmouth. But this is a highly specialized version of my smallmouth seminar. That's Tidal River smallmouth fishing. Now, this can apply to rivers all over the country, but it's specifically to tidal rivers all up and down the East Coast. The Hudson River, the Connecticut River, the Potomac River, the Delaware River where we're at right now, the Susquehanna River. It's awesome to be able to catch both largemouth and smallmouth in these places, but I've discovered over the years that they relate to habitat completely different from one another, and they really kind of complement each other as a bass fisherman. And one of the first things that I discovered about fishing for smallmouth in tidal river systems, and it really makes a lot of sense, it's common sense, they're in the current. With the exception of during the spawn or the winter seasons when they're out of the current, those fish are in the current. Post-spawn, summertime, fall season, they're in the current, they're chasing bait, so we got to go in the current after them. And fortunate thing about tidal waters, there's always some current to be found. Probably the most unique thing that I discovered about smallmouth bass is how they relate to habitat at a high tide. As a largemouth bass fisherman in tidal water systems, the high tide is the most difficult time to be able to pattern largemouth bass. It scatters the bait, it makes the fish hard to catch. A low tide is an amazing tide to really focus on the largemouth. He's an ambush predator, and he has his most success at low tide, and so does an angler that's tackling them. Can catch those largemouth on the last couple hours of outgoing to low, first hour of incoming. Smallmouth are a little bit different. They get kind of funky at low tide. They're hard to find at low tide. They scatter, they become hyper aware and are difficult to catch. But the beauty of it is, at high tide, the smallmouth are on fire. They love the high tide because the bait is scattered, but they love to chase bait. The current at higher tides is often the strongest, and they love all that extra current. It gets them fired up. I love to fish for smallmouth on tidal rivers, and here, if you've got a tidal river system that has both largemouth and smallmouth species, which most of them do, I usually will fish for my smallmouth on the higher tides, and I'll switch gears and target largemouth on lower tides. That tip is huge. It'll keep you catching fish all day long. And how cool is that? Whether you're a tournament angler or whether you're just out fishing with your son, how cool is it to be able to adjust through the tide phases and catch both species catching fish all day long? That's what we all want. And so I want to advise you, the higher tides, start looking for those smallmouth. Where I'm going to look for them, I'm going to look for those smallmouth on the current breaks at higher tides, rocky points that jut out into the river, jetties, any kind of constriction which may intensify the current, like little bridges or constrictions in creeks, constrictions in backwaters that cause additional flow as the tide comes in and goes out. Look for those places to be where the smallmouth are going to really congregate, and they do congregate. Once you find a good smallmouth habitat on a tidal river system, you can expect to not just catch one, but catch multiple fish off of it. They really are a schooling fish. They like to feed together. So look for them at a high tide. Look for them in those heavy current, main river, main creek scenarios. That's what you're going to look for as far as smallmouth goes. Now, we've got a high tide scenario.
Welcome to Bass University TV, an online video training course where you'll learn champion bass fishing techniques from pro anglers Pete Gluszek, Mike Iaconelli, and their talented special guests. From on the water to in the classroom, you'll learn sound techniques and strong fundamental bass fishing skills. Watch hours of video content on multiple topics at your own pace for a low monthly fee. Cancel at any time. Information is power in the sport of fishing, so learn from the very best. Subscribe to Bass University TV today.